Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Good morning, everybody. Cowboy, and it is 8:30 a.m. EST, and we're going to jump right into the markets. Looks like I had the wrong screen up there. Now this should be the right screen. Looking at Bitcoin here, and we're looking at what is a relatively predictable pattern. And this is on the daily chart. This is pretty high time frame. So the data you're looking at goes all the way back to November. Okay, so let me expand this a little bit, make it a little easier to see. Well, what we saw, of course, was last year price going up through the summer. Then we had the election as price right here started to make a huge move up. And then we had an all-time high, a second peak where it tested that all-time high, and now we're getting this retracement. And this move down really started right about here when the deep seek thing happened, right? So what I mean by that is if you don't remember, China came out with an AI large language model, LLM, that really didn't require the advanced chips like the AIs do here in the US for, Chat GPT, etc., right? And so because of that, the market realized that not a lot of money is required for AI necessarily. Now, when you have a business that takes a lot of money in for investment, that's a way to shuffle money around and then cram it into the market. When it's realized that that money could go elsewhere or it's just simply not needed, that's going to destabilize a lot of things. And a lot of money left the market at that time. And then you had talk of tariffs and, of course, continuation down. And that brings you to present day, right? So the move down really in the last week or two has been pretty brutal. We've been watching it, and that's that. So this really is inspired by the NASDAQ, or at least, pressured by the NASDAQ. So if I were to click over to look at the NASDAQ and just take a look at what the algos say, the NASDAQ itself has been, 15% off the highs, if not more, maybe closer to 30. Let's see. The NASDAQ peaked out at 26% off the highs and is now 19% off the highs. So it has made some moves up in the last day or two, and it looks like it's going to continue up for the moment, actually, just based on what might be kind of a quick bounce. When I look at the algos here, I do see reasons why price may come up this week. May not. I mean, it could just kind of temporarily come up and then get crushed back down. What may happen here at the NASDAQ, and this is going to relate to Bitcoin, is we're probably going to see it. Now, I can't guarantee this, of course, can't guarantee anything, but I think it may actually approach this resistance here, which is just a prior liquidity area of about 19,000. Maybe 200, might grab some liquidity here and then start to head down again. That could happen, right? Now, I wouldn't bet on that until, again, my tools, my algos told me that was the case, but that looks like, that's what's going to happen. And that process could take all week. This would be a relatively stabilizing effect on the markets for all markets, Bitcoin included, right? So Bitcoin could kind of hang out where it is. The thing about Bitcoin, though, is that it's got a little more of a bearish tint. Now, you'll notice it looks very similar to the NASDAQ. If I go NASDAQ, Bitcoin, see how similar they are? But Bitcoin itself has a bit more of a bearish tint on the higher time frames. So, I mean, we're going to see how all this plays out. But if I were to take a guess on Bitcoin, I think a little money is going to drain out of it a little more quickly than the NASDAQ. Maybe not. And if the NASDAQ goes up to that area we just talked about, then Bitcoin may have already visited its liquidity, because you got this liquidity all right here. And you notice Bitcoin came up to there, which is at about 81,200, and now appears to be rejecting possibly the downside, right? It could continue to stay in this area. It could go up or not. It's kind of at a point where it's either going to break 82 to the upside or not. Could just go sideways and down. The pattern typical in these moves, though, is what I've drawn on here. And let me move to the daily. And let's move to the daily chart. And that pattern is something that is pretty common. When you see a strong move down from highs, you'll get a move back up to this 382 retracement. So I drew a Fibonacci on this move right here. So the Fibonacci tool that I drew is on that move right there, that line that I just drew. And it will come down, and then it'll come back up to the 382 and typically head down to the 1.618, which in this case is 56,000. I know a lot of people really don't want to hear that, but it is what it is. So again, if NASDAQ can really start to push upwards, if something changes, if the CPI comes out super cool, if we get a surprise rate cut, if Trump reverses his policies, if, right? Lots and lots of variables. The headline risk right now is probably bigger than any time I can remember. The headline risk is massive right now. So that being said, as a day trader, I'm in heaven because there's like scalping and you just have to kind of avoid the news and then you ride the wave from the news after the news is already out. If you're a swing trader, then you're just going to have to avoid the news and make sure that you're managing your positions in such a way that the headline risk is minimized, right? And that usually involves moving your stops prior to the news, or even moving your stops a little bit more aggressively, choosing the times that you get in. And the big clue, and I know this is really not going to work for most people, but the big kind of clue there is to trade the European session if you can, or even the Asian session, if you're trading Forex, so that's, and I love Forex. That's my thing. Forex markets have basically 3 sessions, and that's what we're looking at now. Decent little possible short here on USD/JPY. Speaking of Forex, so I already took it, but I might kind of add to it. So let me zoom in a little bit. This is a nice little short, and it's a great risk to reward opportunity. So I'll share this one publicly here. Now we might see, I put a pretty small amount on this. It's a 3-to-1. There is kind of a possibility of a pop-up above the stop. And if it does that, then I'll just take the short again, because right now, as it stands, this really wants to head down. Right now, I think it's just going to kind of grind down into my profit. But if it does not, then what I can do is I can actually, let's just say it stops me out, like for whatever reason, the bulls do kind of end up taking over. If that happens, I could just take the short up here because it is probably going to continue down at some point. And if that happens, it will be a much bigger trade than it is right now. So just a quick short on USD/JPY, and I'm going to go ahead and share that for educational purposes only, also with the Algo Factory group. So we're going to call this high risk USD/JPY idea, high risk. Because there is a factor of risk in this in the algos that it's like, okay, it's a great risk to reward, but it's also high risk. And, without getting too technical and boring everybody on the channel, that's what that is. So right here, I'm basically tripling my money if this pays off. So it's 3.16 to 1, which means that if I put in $1,000, I take out 3,160. If I put in 500, then I'm going to take out 1,545. So to be precise, 1,548. So, is that right? 15480, whatever. So that is, the deal with that. Good. All right. So we are almost to the end here. I'm going to take a brief look at Solana because, this right now is looking pretty interesting. Now this is a low time frame, so let me jump to a little bit higher of a time frame. Solana tends to be like a leveraged version of Bitcoin, right? So it moves a little bit quicker than Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin were to continue up, there might be opportunities with Solana to where I could grab a long on this that's a little bit stronger. The question is whether or not it can stay above this low right here, which is 95. And that's a brutal low for Solana, but I called this out. If you watch the Sunday shows, if you're watching the live shows, I've called this all out. So if price can stay above 95, that's going to be a good sign for the rest of the market. It's going to be telling us that Bitcoin does have the capability to kind of match the NASDAQ if it's moving up, which it kind of is. I did also notice that the NQ, we'll look at that also if there's time. But if it breaks below 95, then we're probably also looking at a break downward for Bitcoin. That's just kind of a clue that you can use. Solana tends to move down faster than Bitcoin and move up faster than Bitcoin in both directions. So Solana might be telling us quite a bit, especially if it can break this local high of 123. That means Bitcoin's probably gone up into the 80K range. For the moment, I would be pretty careful with it, though. I think it's probably going to bounce sideways and down, but we're going to see with that. And then the last thing we'll look at here is NASDAQ. And I did say in a particular trading group that is NASDAQ oriented that it does want to pop up. And sure enough, after I said it, it did pop up this morning. There's a little bit of bullishness here left in this move because we had such a massive, massive move down last week that right now it seems that for whatever reason, and it might be a little bit of manipulation, or it might just be a natural thing, or it might be rumors, it might be many, many, many things, but the NASDAQ does want to continue up. And like I said earlier, I think it's going to come up to probably test, say, 18.8 or even 19.150, 19.2, something like that. That's what it looks like it'll do. We'll see about it. Either way, come on over to algofactory.tech. We're like really good at predicting price. We're really good at teaching you how to predict the price. When you trade with us, it's not like you need to know how to code. We're not necessarily showing you how to create an auto trader. An algorithm really is just a way to trade, whether you're doing it old school, whether you're doing it high tech. We'll show you all that stuff. We'll teach you how to trade like a hedge fund pro. And by the way, get your free algo. There is a link in the description. Go to the description, use that link, and I will send you a free algo. And I'll email it to you as well, but emailing is not necessary. It'll just take you right to the screen as soon as you give us your email. So awesome. Thank you all for watching. Going to head over to the private live lab. Never, ever, ever forget.
Join us or die.
Just kidding. Just kidding. You're not going to die. You're going to live, and you're going to live a long time, but we want you to live in a very prosperous manner. So come on over and join us, and we'll catch you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. EST sharp.